Hey everybody, Jason here of GhostbustersNews.com, and as always, Ghostbusters News right here on YouTube, and I just got back from watching Ghostbusters Afterlife. This video is probably going to be a little longer. It's going to be spoiler-free, just a quick heads up there. There is going to be a spoiler-filled video coming out later soon here on the Ghostbusters News channel. So if you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe. Be on the lookout for our spoiler-filled video if you've already watched the movie and such. But in short, if you love Ghostbusters, do yourself a favor. Go and watch Ghostbusters Afterlife. Oh, and before I go too deep into this video, I would like to send a huge shout out to one of the newest Ghostbusters News Patreon members, Dan Buchanan. Dan requested his shout out in this video because, maybe he thought I was going to get emotional, I was going to cry. I don't know. Maybe this video will be noteworthy, maybe it won't. I got a lot to say. Okay, so let me go ahead, let me just dive into this right here. The first part of this movie, it didn't really hook me. It took me probably about 20 minutes or so to really get into it. And I think that was because the intro to it was so different than what we saw with, previous Ghostbusters films and media. Like the intro in this movie, it is entirely different when compared to what we saw in Ghostbusters 1, 2, the 2009 video game, Ghostbusters Answer the Call. Like this intro is drastically different, and it's Ghostbusters, but it kind of doesn't feel like Ghostbusters just yet. And I'm going to say it because I don't really consider it a spoiler. All of those movies before, once again, the 2009 video game, they began with that scare moment or just something happening, and you'd see the Ghostbusters logo kind of come in from the sides, and the Ghostbusters, theme song would play, and it doesn't happen. And for me, I've been imagining that moment for 30 years. What would Ghostbusters 3 be like? How would it open up? How would the theme song kick in? What would happen? What type of scare would we see? And when I didn't get that, I think my mind didn't know how to kind of take the film at that point. And I think that was also in part because really like the first 10, 15, 20 minutes of the film, they do shove a lot at you. Like there's a lot going on. It almost feels like I walked in late to the movie a little bit, even though I got there like an hour early to make sure I got my preferred seat. Now eventually I had to get serious with myself and say, self, let this movie grow its own legs. It's going to be different than Ghostbusters 1. Of course, it's kind of the continuation of that first film, but it's, it has to be different. One of the biggest criticisms of Ghostbusters 2 was for beat, it was so much of the same thing as to what we saw with the original movie. So it's a good thing that Afterlife is different. Let's give it some time. Let's see if it can hook me. And it did hook me. And really what did it was McKenna Grace playing Phoebe, her interactions with Podcast, played by Logan Kim, and Mr. Gruberson, played by Paul Rudd. Their interactions at the school, I mean, that's not a spoiler. They all go to school. They're kids. We know Mr. Gruberson, he works at the school. But their interactions, their comedy bits, it kind of let me kind of like take my guard down a little bit and begin to really enjoy the film. And enjoying the film, did I ever? Let me just say right now, McKenna Grace is an absolute freaking superstar. She's like, I think 15 now, if I'm not mistaken. That girl, I don't know, like, can Ghostbusters Afterlife win Oscars? I mean, if it gets nominated, she should win an Oscar. And no, I'm not talking about the baby from Ghostbusters 2. I'm talking about the Oscar statue. McKenna Grace is amazing. Like, seriously, everything from her comedic timing in the movie. There's moments where she gets emotional that got me emotional. Yeah, I was just blown away by her overall performance. She did so much of the heavy lifting, but that's not to say that the entire, the other cast, they can be forgotten about because, as I just mentioned, Logan Kim as Podcast, when I first saw him, I was a little worried. He was definitely the comic relief. It was obvious from the get-go when you first see him. He's going to be that character that like 80% of the time, when something that is, is coming out of his mouth, it's going to be a joke. And that can go one or two different ways. But luckily for me, for the most part, I found Podcast hilarious. I also really like the chemistry between Phoebe and Podcast. Phoebe kind of has this thing where she tells like really bad like dad jokes. And there's a really great moment in between like Podcast and Phoebe talking, and she tells one, and I don't know, it just made me fall in love with these two characters as a team. And another actor that does great in this, which, I mean, I've already mentioned him by name, Paul Rudd. I thought actually his role in this would be a little smaller. I know he's a busy guy. He's got a lot of things going on. He's Ant-Man. He's the sexiest man alive. Once again, he's busy. But he's in it for a good while, and I'm thankful that he is because he's marvelous. And I guess since I'm talking about McKenna Grace and Logan Kim and Paul Rudd, I might as well talk about the rest of the cast. I apologize. Like I said, I just came from the movie. This video is not scripted at all. I'm just thinking of things and talking into the camera. So continuing on, Finn Wolfhard, he plays Trevor. Trevor is the brother of Phoebe. And if I already didn't say it, they are the grandchildren of Egon Spengler. Once again, not a spoiler. I mean, that's pretty much in the trailers. And Trevor does have some really fun moments in the movie, especially when he, Podcast, and Phoebe, they go out and they bust Muncher, which we have seen in trailers. We've seen clips of that released. And there's a good reason for that, because from start to finish, that is a fantastic ghost-busting scene. I mean, with the original film, they went to the Sedgwick, they busted Slimer. In the second, they busted the Scoleri brothers at the courtroom. In this, we've got the new team busting Muncher in the streets of Somerville with the Ecto-1, and it was great, like really great. So much so, like my favorite ghost bust of all time is the Scoleri brothers Ghostbusters 2 courtroom. I think this one's better. Yeah. Now, in that scene, Trevor, he is driving the Ecto-1 because he's a car guy, which the movie makes very apparent. In fact, he's the one that actually fixes up the Ecto-1 with a little bit of help. Just going to stop talking about that help. Stay tuned for our spoiler-filled video. I do wish the Trevor character, though, was a little bit more fleshed out. In fact, he spends the majority of his time in the movie kind of courting Lucky, who is this younger girl that works at the, I don't know, would you call it a sock hop? I guess. Spinners, it's like the big main, I think maybe only restaurant in Somerville. It's a really small town. And I really wanted to care about Trevor and Lucky and their relationship, but I don't know, I didn't. I wanted to, I really wanted to, it just did not click with me. Now also I should mention Lucky is played by Celeste O'Connor, who I find very talented in this movie. Once again, I wish she had something else, maybe a different layer to her. There was actually a bit of conflict that I thought was gonna happen in the movie that never did happen, that I really want to talk about in the spoiler video, because I feel like there's probably something somewhere on the cutting room floor, at Ghost Corps, because I feel like there was another layer to this character that didn't make the screen. I don't know for sure, it's just a weird hunch, but And then we also have to talk about the mother figure in the movie. She's the mother of Phoebe and Trevor, daughter of Dr. Egon Spengler, Callie, played by Carrie Coon. And this was actually one character at the beginning I could kind of take or leave. I really wasn't kind of like digging her all that much, but as the movie went on, I actually quite started feeling for her quite a bit emotionally, and there was a moment in it that kind of choked me up a little bit. Like, I've read and watched some criticisms over the Callie character. I really did enjoy her. I mean, to me, Carrie Coon's like perfect in everything she does. Like, everything I've seen her in, she hasn't done any wrong, and she's great in this movie. Now, if you've been totally oblivious to all the trailers, in particular the final Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer, you may want to click this video off now, because like I said, this one's spoiler free, but I'm only going to talk about things that have been featured in the trailers. So if you try to avoid that final trailer, if you have not watched it, you don't continue watching this one, because I'm going to talk about something that's in that final trailer now that I'm going to get probably really excited about. Once again, though, their exact involvement is going to be spoiler-free in this video, but Bill Murray, Peter Venkman, Dan Aykroyd, Ray Stantz, and Ernie Hudson, Winston Zeddemore, they are back in Afterlife. I almost slipped up there and said something I shouldn't have. And oh my freaking gozer, they hit so damn hard on the screen when they are back. They are perfect. Like Bill Murray in this, he is Venkman again. I know in the 2009 video game, a lot of people kind of thought he phoned it in, but this is Peter Venkman circa 1984. In fact, I think he kind of took the volume a little bit and turned it up a little bit there. If Peter Venkman was like a 7 before, he's now on a 10 because he's so Venkman-y. Venkman-y. I really should have prepared a script for this video. I'm sorry. Ray, of course, is fast talking, which he is here, like really from the get-go when you see them. Ray's just, he's dispensing verbiage. And then you have Winston, who I'm elated to say, because, in the first two films, he came in quite a bit later on. He's treated as an equal when it comes to Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray, Peter Venkman, Ray Stantz. And it made me so happy to see Ray, Peter, and Winston standing along each other as equals, because Winston back in the day, Ernie Hudson, he could hardly get in on a film poster. So to see these guys together, and I don't want to, once again, I'm not going to get too much into it here, it really made me happy. And to see Winston in this, the way he's presented, I got emotional. Now, I went to go see this with my wife and 3 friends, and those friends, their knowledge of Ghostbusters, probably not the best. I mean, one's pretty good, the other 2 probably not so much. But I'm happy to report that everybody loved the film. And I think that was mainly because Podcast, the character, and actually Phoebe, really the kids in general, they do a great job at explaining things to them and to one another that kind of sets up, what happened once again back in 1984 in the original Ghostbusters movie. So if you haven't watched that movie, if you haven't, go watch it. Or if your memory of that film's a little fuzzy, they do a great job at reminding you of, some of the core basics of that film in terms of, some of the things that happened. Oh, and actually, speaking of those that were around me, and really the audience in general, for a movie that they've talked, for months about being so emotional, which it is. It so is. There was so much laughter actually going on around me. And for another thing, too, a lot of people have criticized this film from the trailer saying it doesn't look like a comedy. No, it is a comedy. It's a comedy, it's an action, it's a sci-fi. I don't know if I'd consider it horror. I never really considered the first Ghostbusters film horror, as a lot of people have. I know, like, the library ghost, that's a jump scare in the first one. If you consider it like the terror dogs from the first movie horror, this is in the same classification, I guess. But yeah, in short there, comedic level, this movie delivers. Action level, this movie delivers. Emotional level, this movie over-delivers. And believe me, I'm going to get into that emotion in our next video, so stay tuned for that. Now, before going to watch this movie, I read quite a few reviews online from some of the higher echelon film critics that complained there was too many callbacks in this movie. And yes, there's certainly callbacks in this film, there's no doubt about that, but as a Ghostbusters fan, really nothing took me out of it. Nothing distracted me. There were some things I saw and I kind of welled up a little bit and, kind of choked up. There was other things that I pointed at and was like, that's really cool. I can't believe they put that in here. But nothing that took away any of my desire, from this film or knocked it down a peg. There's one line that was maybe a little cringy, but I love the callbacks. Do I want the next Ghostbusters movie? If it happens, it's got to happen. Come on, please, Sony. Please, Columbia Pictures Ghost Corps, make it happen. But yeah, would I want the next movie to have all these callbacks in it? No. But this is, once again, a continuation of a film that was released over 30 years ago. It needs those callbacks. At least, I think it does. Especially after the 2016 reboot. And a quick heads up here, I like that movie. I've got no problem with the 2016 reboot. But there was hardly any, fan service in that film, which, it makes sense because it was a reboot. And I think because of that film and just how everything kind of panned out for it, I feel like this was probably the best way to go about, I don't want to say rebooting the franchise because this isn't a reboot, it's a continuation. But in terms of, continuing on with the franchise, if you're going to use that core, storyline and connect it to the original film, this was the best way they could have done it. And honestly, I cannot imagine it really going any better in terms of it, once again, being connected to the original film and the storyline and everything kind of, flowing between the original Ghostbusters movie and Ghostbusters Afterlife. With that said, though, one big nitpick, though, I have with the movie is Ghostbusters 2. I don't think it really exists anymore. At least, in this canon. Ray's Occult Bookstore, it's in the movie. We've seen it in a trailer. But aside from them cherry picking that one location and Ray working in there, there is absolutely no reference at all to Ghostbusters 2. And I'm going to get more in detail with that in the spoiler-filled video. But Ghostbusters 2 is my favorite Ghostbusters. I know I'm in the minority. I know I'm a little crazy for that. So I'm a little sad to see. Like, I know the first Ghostbusters film was like the best, the most well-rounded, well-made Ghostbusters film. Well, maybe Afterlife is. No, I'm not going to say that just yet. But yeah, the first Ghostbusters film, it is so well made. I know the second one is not as good, but to me, it's more fun. Oh, I also feel like we kind of missed like a training montage, because let me tell you, all the kids in this film, they are savants with any of the equipment they have to use. I mean, Phoebe, I kind of get it. It's kind of her gimmick. You know, she's very technical. She's good with the electronics. But like podcasts, we've seen it once again in the trailer. Podcasts, like he's driving around that RTV, the little remote control trap with the controller, and he just like starts picking the stuff up and controlling it without any trial and error beforehand. Like, he knows exactly what to do. And then you have Trevor, who doesn't have a driver's license, but he's like turning corners, you know, on two wheels with the Ecto-1, and he's not ramming into people. He's not killing anybody. You got Phoebe there in the gunner seat. She's not getting decapitated by him hitting some type of light pole. I don't know, when it came to how good these kids are, you know, with Phoebe with the proton pack, podcast with the RTV, Trevor just driving pretty much. I mean, the driving's not really that far of a leap, but the RTV moment with podcast and Phoebe with the proton pack, like I said, I kind of feel like we missed a training montage. I don't know, just turn that part of your brain off for that bit of the film, I guess. Now, with that said, I do feel like there's probably some stuff, you know, they did cut out of the film, but the pacing, to me, was really good. Like, it's, I think, a little over 2 hours. I think 2 hours, 4 minutes is what I read. It flew by. I was actually quite sad because I knew the culmination, like what was happening in the movie. I knew the ending was coming, and I didn't want it to happen. I mean, this is a movie we've all been waiting over 30 years for. I did not want it to end. Like, it's so weird now to live in a world where I have seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, you know, Ghostbusters 3. I never thought we would get to this day. Here we are. Oh, and speaking of the ending, speaking of the culmination, you're not prepared. I wasn't prepared. Wow. Like, I don't want to give away too much once again in this video. That's coming. But the big baddie at the end of this film looks absolutely amazing. Such a cool visual, at least I thought. So much so that after I left the theater, I was talking to people that, you know, came with me, and they pretty much told me to shut up. Like, why are you just focusing in on this one thing? I liked it that much. Now, I'll be honest, that was just one of like 5 or 6 other things I was bothering them with. I couldn't shut up after watching Ghostbusters Afterlife. I mean, I still can't shut up. I mean, this video is probably going to be edited down to like maybe 10, 15 minutes, maybe longer. But I've already been here recording now for 1 hour and 20 minutes. Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Ghostbusters Afterlife. I know I've got a few nitpicks here and there when it comes to it, but I absolutely love this film. I adore this film. And that being said, getting back to that finale, it is such a freaking gut punch, such an emotional punch. I'm not going to cry thinking about it, am I? Don't do this. In the theater, I did not get as emotional as I thought I would have, but I'm going to say this. The finale gives us a moment, it gives us a scene that I think we've all been waiting for. It's so good. And in the movie, despite the locations changing, like obviously Ghostbusters 1, Ghostbusters 2, it took place in New York City. Ghostbusters Afterlife, it is set in the fictitious town of Somerville, Oklahoma. And despite the environments being so much smaller, you know, it's not that big city setting, I still felt like the ending was grand scale. Like, they did a great job at making everything feel quite important, and, you know, that the world could come to an end. I mean, it wasn't exactly like being on top of a New York City, you know, apartment building or a high rise, but the visual effects in that finale, yeah, I mean, I'm going to touch on this in the other video, but the final 10 minutes of this movie to me could be my favorite 10 minutes of any film. It's that good. It's that good. I don't mean to overhype it, but it's that good. And I just mentioned like some of the, like the visual effects and such like that. The visuals in this movie are breathtaking. It's a beautifully shot film. Director Jason Reitman did a hell of a job with this. You know, picking up the reins from his father, Ivan Reitman, who directed the first two Ghostbusters films. Jason does a great job at making Afterlife his own, while at the same time respecting what his father did back in 1984. It is hands down, in my opinion, the best looking Ghostbusters film to date. I mean, that's not official, just my opinion, but best looking Ghostbusters film. It's beautiful. And you want to talk about beautiful? Rob Simonson. Rob Simonson, the composer of Ghostbusters Afterlife. In fact, by the time this video is live, the soundtrack to the movie, the score to the movie, it is available to listen on like Amazon Music and iTunes and Spotify and all that. His score is amazing. I know I've been saying amazing a lot in this video, but this movie, a lot of things connected to this movie deserve that title. Amazing. His score takes the essence of the original Elmer Bernstein score, and he does his own unique things with it here and there. And honestly, I think it's the last two songs on the album. They're called Showdown and Reconciliation. Those tracks in particular I can see myself honestly sitting down, listening to it, writing up an article, having my earphones in, and just bawling and crying, thinking about what's happening in the movie when I'm listening to that score. So as I already mentioned, like the last 10-15 minutes of this movie, I'm in love with. My favorite movie moment scene ever, quite possibly. I mean, I shouldn't be saying that right now to you. I still need to digest this movie more, but I loved it. I loved it so much. And with that, you may be wondering where Ghostbusters Afterlife sits on my scale in terms of, you know, my favorite and least favorite Ghostbusters movie. I don't know. I don't know just yet. That's something I'm going to let sit for a little while and digest, because to me, it's got the overarching vibe and feel kind of the original 1984 film from Ivan Reitman. Jason Reitman did an amazing, amazing job with this. So yeah, it's got the feel of the first Ghostbusters, but it has the fun of Ghostbusters 2. And as I said earlier, Ghostbusters 2, that is my favorite Ghostbusters to just sit down and watch and enjoy. So the fact that Afterlife takes that fun, you know, harnesses that fun from what I felt like, you know, was in Ghostbusters 2 and applies it to Afterlife just in a, I don't want to say a better made movie. Okay, I'm going to say it. To me, I think Afterlife it's better made than Ghostbusters 2. Hurts me to say it. I love Ghostbusters 2, but Afterlife, it feels like a better made movie. And I know a lot of people out there, that's not going to be a shock to you, but I'm the guy that loves Ghostbusters 2. That is my favorite Ghostbusters. Is it my favorite Ghostbusters? I don't know anymore. As I said at the top of the video, if you love Ghostbusters, if you like you know what? No. If you're watching this video, I don't know why you'd get this long in this video if you have no interest in Ghostbusters. If you are, you know, I love you. You're a trooper. Be sure to watch all my videos about Ghostbusters that you have no interest in. But yeah, I would recommend Ghostbusters Afterlife to anyone, whether or not you love Ghostbusters, whether or not you've never seen Ghostbusters. Like I said, the film does a great job at setting the stage. You know, if you've never watched the first movie, it really kind of, you know, catches you up to date as to everything that has happened and that is happening and the threat that's about to take over this town of Somerville. But at the same time, if you are a hardcore fan, there is so much to like sink your teeth into. There's so many callbacks, Easter eggs. There's so many things to enjoy, and it really fleshes out that original storyline that we saw in the first film. It gives it another layer. Now, what I want to know is, what do you think? Please, on this video, keep the comment section spoiler free. If you want to talk about spoilers, we can do that in the spoiler-filled video I'm going to release soon here on the channel. But in this video, please, please, please keep the comment section as spoiler-free as possible. That's all I've got for you here right now. As always, be sure to subscribe to Ghostbusters News here on YouTube. Bust that bell notification icon to stay up to date with everything that's happening within the Ghostbusters world. If you'd like to join up with Ghostbusters News, check out our Patreon page. We have a link to that down below in this video's description. And I'll see everybody right back here next time.